and Ashlee Chesny is joining us now. She is she is equal parts purpose and passion, using her knack for storytelling to change the world for children. She is a six-time published children's author, an award-winning literacy advocate known as Mrs. Ashlee. She has served over 5,000 children with her books and programs, and today she's going to give us a special announcement to help parents and children through the school closings due to the coronavirus. Ashlee, are you there? Hey, Ashlee.
Hey guys.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Ashlee, you are, I call you the storyteller, children's book author, guru, strategist. Mrs. Ashlee that I actually had a chance to see live and up close at one of Sylvia's Motown Writers Network meetings. And I just thought you were amazing the way you started out with, here's a comment, there's a comment, and all these comments were put together, and then there was a book. So just kind of tell us how you got into children's books, because that seems like it's an easy area or easy genre, but it's really not.
It is not. And honestly, I started out, and excuse me, I am under the weather, but I started out because I was 23. I had a job I could not stand. I was living 8 hours away from home, and I decided to quit because I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. At the time, I had a godson named Nicholas, and we called him Nico. And, of course, like all 2-year-olds, he loved bubbles. And so every time we would FaceTime, I think we had FaceTime back then, but every time we would FaceTime or talk, he would be telling Auntie Ashlee about these bubbles. And it's cute hearing a little kid say bubbles when they're that young. And so I was like, I have taken time off of working. I need to find a way to be happy. Here's this little 2-year-old, and he's finding the simple happiness in bubbles. And to be honest, I wanted that. I was like, how do you get to be that happy with something so simple? And so, ironically, I remember that when I was younger, when I was actually a child, I loved to write and tell stories. And so I was like, I'm going to try to write a story for him. And so I wrote Nico and the Trouble Bubble. But I literally just wrote it for him. I didn't think anything was going to come out of it, but I was off work. Somebody I went to high school with called me, and they said, hey, do you still write stories like you did in high school? And it was crazy because I was like, I didn't even remember that I used to write stories, so how do you remember? But that old classmate actually invited me to the Charles H. Wright for the Love of Literacy Fair. I got to read Nico and the Trouble Bubble live to children just as a story. I didn't have illustrations. I didn't have a book. I didn't have any of that.
Wow.
I was just like, hey kids, I'm going to tell you a story. And the crazy thing is they reacted in a way, and even their parents, they were like, oh, we like that story. Where can we buy the book? And I was like, Monica, look, I was like, oh, I don't have a book. It was just a story. But I was like, it's coming out this year.
That's right. You gotta market. You have to market even if you don't have a product. That's actually how you can push yourself to get started. Oftentimes, if you just say, I have a book coming out and it'll be out soon, and sometimes people will buy it ahead of time, and then you have to put it together.
Exactly. And I hear a lot of people, I know, like Sylvia is the publishing guru. I am the storyteller guru, and I like to just create stories. So a lot of times we get inundated with the details of the next step before we even have the story. And so that's the first thing, like get into the space where you love to tell stories. And when I do this with children, we create stories with children that we turn into books on my nonprofit Genius Hat and one-on-one with me as Mrs. Ashlee. We need to do that as adults too. Like if someone asks you, how are you doing, or how is your day, like tell a story. Because we sit down and we think, okay, I don't actively tell stories, but now I'm just going to write a whole book, like a 300-page book. It's something that you have to practice, and a lot of times actually getting into the habit of vocally storytelling helps. For me, the kids were like, Mrs. Ashlee, where's the book? The parents were like, "Where's the book?" I was like, "It'll be out," and that's how I got started. Now, something actually really special happened. I started going around once I got the book published, and it was a messy journey. I should tell all the listeners that. I don't think anybody has the perfect publishing journey with any book, with any story that they write, with any experience that they have until they become someone as amazing as Sylvia. But for me, children's books are, honestly, they can be very expensive to produce. They're quick to write, but you have illustrations, y'all. It can cost. Like, I heard Sylvia drop free gems. Look at you, Sylvia, telling the people to check out Fiverr.com. Another resource is Upwork.com. It's a freelancer site. You set up your account and you can post your job, essentially. You can say, oh, I have a children's book. I want illustrations. This is my budget. And freelancers will bid on that job. So you know your budget and you can set it. Tailor your expectations, because if you want to pay $100 for illustrations, you're going to get $100 illustrations. But you'll be surprised the amount of talent that is sourced on Upwork and Fiverr.com, where you can find somebody who's affordable for your budget to produce those illustrations. But I didn't know that back then. I did not know that back then. So I paid out of my savings so much money for illustrations, and I hated them. I hated them. I was embarrassed by them. In fact, my grandmother keeps the old version of Nico and the Trouble Bubble at her house. Throw it away, Granny. Throw it away.
So, Ashlee, when somebody wants to start on a journey to write, be it a children's book, be it any type of book, what's the first thing that you recommend they do?
I think consider the audience. One of the things, because I work with children, it's not just about me writing the stories. It's about me creating stories that they see themselves in, that they love, that they want to read over and over again. So I think a lot of times we can become a little self-centered, right? I want to tell this story. I want it to be this way. I have written books that I had to change because the kids were like, no, Mrs. Ashlee. Or it's too long, Mrs. Ashlee. Or I don't like this character, Mrs. Ashlee. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it, because that's a learning experience for them, and it's some free research for me. They're telling me what they want and what they don't want. So I say, first off, be willing to be wrong. Be willing to change. Be willing to adjust. But listen to your audience.
Yes.
Oftentimes
Definitely.
people don't want to do that, but that is extremely important. And I think it's great that you actually use an audience of children, because they could probably be a very tough audience. They're going to tell you exactly what they want.
Yes. Yeah, actually, Monica, my first reading, I was at a school. I was reading to a group of fourth graders, and this little boy changed my life, because I was a little high on myself. I was like, oh, I published these books without having any background in writing or literature. I don't have degrees in that. And so I'm sitting in the school reading to a group of fourth graders, and at the end of my read, I'm thinking, yes, you did it. 30 kids looking back at you, listening to your story. Good job. But a little boy walked up to me, and he was brown. He was one of our brown babies. And he told me, he said, you didn't write that book. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, my name's on it, my picture's on the back. Like, I made sure that it was my book. But I was trying to figure out, like, why he would say that. So I asked him, I said, why did you say that? And he said, because all authors are old white men with glasses.
Wow. What a
And
powerful
so in that
statement.
moment, yes. And in that moment, I went back to my childhood, because as a child, I hated reading. I hated reading because of the fact I didn't see anybody who looked like me in the story, which is still a problem today. But this little boy was telling me, I also don't see anyone who looks like me writing the story. So from there on, I was like, oh, I have to figure out how to get in front of these babies and let them know not only am I an author, they can be an author, and there's characters and books that look just like them. And so I created the nonprofit Genius Patch. We have served through that nonprofit 1,500 different children around the world. with literacy-based programming. And it's different because we're not trying to teach them to read or write. We're just trying to get them excited about it. And so we start with the books that I write, and then we create activities from those books, and then we do something really cool. And Mrs. Ashlee does this one-on-one with children, too, and Genius Tax does it in the community in groups. We actually teach them my process for writing stories, not the technicality, not the grammatical correctness of being an author, but just the fun part of writing a story and coming up with a story. And then we take those stories, and for some of the children, we turn them into books. Now, you would think, okay, that's great for those children, but then here's the extra layer. We take them around the world and donate them to other children so that they can see their peers are writing. Because here's something that I guarantee. When we were all children, we loved to tell stories.
Right.
We loved to make believe. And I can tell you this because I have a 3-year-old, and he spent 3 hours making soup in a pot of water yesterday. So we all are naturally born with that, but it's taught out of us. It's squelched out of us. So if we can go back to that childhood phase where we love to use our imagination and tell stories, and then if we can keep children from losing that, nobody will have to ask that question. Well, how do you start a story? We're all born with that for now.
Right, you are listening to Ashlee Chesny and to Sylvia Hubbard, and they're both talking about how to write a book. We have a caller who's been very patient, and I want to bring her on, Otella. Hi.
Hi.
Do you have a question or a comment?
Oh, yes. I have been in something. I live in the city of Detroit. And I started off by I wanted to do a little project. So I had people from all around the world signing my home. I also have taken pictures with people like such as Ellie Willis, Anthony Bourdain has signed my home. Different ones. And I was told to take a picture of these people. I have a picture with a lot of them. I have pictures of the signatures. And I'm ready to write the book along with the pictures and the signatures I have. But I don't really know where to start. Yet I say I want to write a book. And, I just don't know where to start or how to get started.
Ladies, which one of you would like to respond to Otella?
Ashlee can take that one. Look at Sylvia. She's like, so actually, in the workbook I created for children, it's called the Junior Storyteller Program. Adults actually use this book too, and it answers that question. Because as a writer, when you sit down to write, or even when you're telling a story, you ask, what's the question, or what's the story that I want to tell? So with these pictures, what the first question you should be asking yourself, you can, and it's great that you already have pictures, because for me as a children's author, I write the story first, and then I have to wait for the illustrations. You have so much inspiration in front of you. Lay those pictures out and ask yourself, what's the story I want to tell? What story can I write that is supported by the pictures that I have here? There's lots of angles you can take. My husband is actually a photographer, and so you can ask yourself, do I want to share my experiences? Do I want to tell what was happening when I took these pictures? You can add your personal emotion into it, the excitement. You can tell about who the people you photograph are. You can tell about the importance of taking photographs of people you find important. You can tell about the human aspect. Maybe, I don't know what the pictures are, but maybe it's somebody in there signing books, for example. And you can talk about what the room felt like when they were signing those books, what that person looked like to you when they were doing it, for example. But what story do you want to tell?
Mine was like, I'm traveling around the world without leaving my front porch. And this is what I was doing. This is what I was doing. I'm traveling. People from all over the world have signed my home. I know you probably heard of the Heidelberg Project.
Yes.
I live in the area. All those people that come to visit, I have them to sign. And so now, I spoke with, I know you remember Miss Ellie Willis, and she told me to take a picture of some of the things that were said on the house. and I began to do that.
So tell her, now that you have this information, what's your next step? What do you plan to do?
I would like to get the name of that book,
Okay, so what
and I
are
would like to.
you able to look online at the
Yes,
feed
I
on
am.
Facebook? Okay. I'm going to have Ashley as well as Sylvia put links and information on the Facebook page so that you can actually get those books. This book that Sylvia has, The Author Guide to Writing, Publishing, and Marketing, is amazing with the
Okay.
resources. And also Ashley's book, I have that book as well. And it's like she said, it helps you write adult books, not just children's books. So
Okay.
they both of their references can help you. And then Sylvia has meetings every second Saturday at the library. So perhaps you could also join in the Motown Writers Network. And Sylvia, you can give out information on how people can do that. It will be on the page, yes, on the Facebook page. So still
Okay.
stay
Thank you very
tuned.
much.
Thank you for
And
calling.
you ladies have a blessed day. Thank
You
you.
too. Bye bye. Hi, Evelyn. You have a question or a comment for Sylvia or Ashley about writing a book?
Yes, I do have a question. I'm sorry. Also, hi to you, Monica.
Hi, Evelyn.
Sorry. I had a question for Ashley, because I know, Monica, you probably remember me telling you before I would like to, or I had some interest in writing a book. And what scares me or makes me afraid of writing a book or putting a book together is that the truthfulness. And sometimes you have to, you might have to be truthful about with different things about different people. That, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, yeah. And so my thing is, how do you go about that? You know, make it, knowing that you might make someone offended because that's your truth. And it's people that's inside of that story that you're telling. So what do you do for that part? How do you go about it? How do you get around it?
So
Because if I did a book,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I saw Michelle Obama was saying that for her book, she actually sent a copy and wrote a letter or contacted every person that she told a story about in that book, and some responded and some did not. I think anytime you tell stories, because I'm Mrs. Ashlee for children, but as Ashlee Chesny, I actually write articles, and I published my first book for women this year. And one of the things for one of the first articles I wrote, I actually told a story about an experience I had with my dad and my grandmother. Now, my grandmother has passed away, and we were never close, and then I'm estranged from my immediate family. So to be honest, I think you have to decide for yourself what you're willing to risk to tell this story and what you're willing to risk in that relationship. Because there can be backlash, not even from that person, but once you put anything that you produce out into the world, people are going to critique and judge it, and some people mistake what you're saying or misunderstand it or don't allow that free space for you to tell that story. So I think the first thing you need to decide is how important is it to you that you tell that story. And then you can take steps to make the individuals in the story aware that you are putting that story out there and kind of give them a heads up because they do need time to process.
Right.
If you have that relationship, you can offer them that opportunity. Now, you can offer it and still create a boundary to say, hey, I am putting this book out, but I respect you enough to give you a heads up.
Exactly.
And we also have Miss Ashlee Chesny, who I call her the children's book guru. She is equal parts purpose and passion. She uses her knack for storytelling to change the world for children. She is a 6-time published children's author and award-winning literacy advocate known as Mrs. Ashlee. On the line, we have Reverend April Hearn, who has a question or comment for Ashlee or Sylvia. Hi, Reverend Hearn.
Hi, I want to say good afternoon to you, Monica, and to Sylvia, and to Mrs. Ashlee. Mine is more so a comment. I just want to commend Ashlee. I met Ashlee many years ago when she had stepped away from corporate America to pursue her passion, and she had completed two books, two children's books, and she had come to New Prospect to give her book to one of her mentors, and her mentor brought her into my office, and we sat down and we talked about these children's books that she had written, and we were preparing for our summer camp, and I told her, I said, you are a genius, because this young lady has a passion for social education for children, especially children of color, to not only make reading fun, but she helped our children to even write their own stories. And this woman is phenomenal. And so I just want to commend you, Ashlee. I'm so very proud of all that you've accomplished, especially in these last several years. She is an educator par excellence. And I say that to her often, even though her background was not in education. She's a businesswoman. She's a business guru. But as I shared with her, I believe educators are born. You can't make them. Doesn't matter how much education you may have, formal education you may have acquired. Educators are born, and she is born to do this. And Ashlee, I just want to commend you on all of your accomplishments. You are absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you, Reverend Hurd, for calling and saying that. It's always good to let people know that you appreciate and recognize the things that they've done. So thank you for calling with that comment. I am just so excited to have Sylvia and Ashlee on because they are two people that I admire. I really admire them. I mean, Sylvia does some amazing things. She not only writes, she speaks, she conducts workshops. She's always on social media with resources and events that are going on, pushing what people are doing so that her audience can take advantage of these resources. And then you have Ashlee. I mean, she has the cutest photograph in the library. I love that image. And she's out there changing things for children, not only locally, but in the world. These are two Detroiters or people who are out there making things happen. And so they're on the show today giving you information and resources so that you also can make your dream come true. And if you have a question or a comment for them, you have a few minutes left to reach out to them. The number is 313-778-7600. Again, it's 313-778-7600. Ashlee, Sylvia, just chime in with, for those people who have a book in them and don't know what to do. What do you recommend besides just 10 minutes a day writing? What else can they do? How can they just kind of overcome the writer's block?
I think I have one, Sylvia. I think I have one, Sylvia, because I am not a trained writer. I don't write every day, unfortunately, because I have a 3-year-old. But I write a lot for someone who has a 3-year-old who does not sleep through the night, guys. And here's one of the biggest things that really opened up my ability to write down my stories. 2 things. One, you think like to write a book, you have to physically write it. You can actually voice record it. So someone like me, I'm a little under the weather today, so I don't have my full voice for you guys. But I can talk so much. So one of the things that I do is I'll take out the voice recorder on my phone, and I will just talk. I'll tell my story into my phone, and that takes a lot of pressure off because sometimes looking at a white page, looking back at you is very intimidating when it's empty. And then you can go on to those sites, Fiverr.com or Upwork, and have someone transcribe it. There's even apps that you can use to transcribe it, and then you can go back and edit it. For myself, when I'm working on novels and books and even articles, that helps because it's like, okay, I got the initial ideas out, and then once I reread what I said, I can actually expand on them. Another tip is that I cannot read an actual physical book because I have a 3-year-old. I'm always on my phone, though. So I write full freaking books in notes, in the notes app on my phone. I have 3 books pretty much almost finished in notes. And then I'll move it into Word or whatever software I'm using, and then format it, edit it, et cetera, et cetera. So don't think that because one person uses one convention to get their stories out, that you have to do the same thing.
That's a
Find
great
out what works
suggestion.
for you. Thank you. Find out what works for you because everybody's schedule is different, everybody's abilities are different, and especially if you're just starting out, do not do things that intimidate you, that you know intimidate you. Play to your strengths.
Hi, Mark. You have a
Oh,
question or a comment?
Hi, this is Mark Mayberry. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to say hello, Monica. It's an outstanding show. And
Thank
then
you.
also I wanted to just say how proud I am of Ashlee and Sylvia, the great work that you're doing. I have, excuse me, the privilege and honor to work with Ashlee as a high school student through our Exam Expert Steps Up program. And so I've seen her grow. So, Ashlee, I just want to say congratulations, everything that you're doing. Sylvia, you as well. This is just the beginning of, I think, a movement that's taking place with regard to people allowing their creativity to flourish
Thank you
in the
so much,
children's
Mr.
area.
Mayberry.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
and I'm a principal. I need to have you all back at my school. I'm in the KA space right now too, and I need to have you at my school working with my kids. So I want and Monica, you as well. I want us all to. I want that to be our next conversation if we can do that.
That sounds great. I'll ask Farrah to get your information as well, and I will share it with the ladies so that they can
That's
reach out to
awesome.
you also.
Absolutely. I'll
Awesome.
keep up the great work. Keep up
Thank
the great
you.
work.
We
Thanks,
appreciate you
Mr. May.
calling. You know, time is moving quickly, and there's so much information that, people need to know about. And like I said, there's so many things going on in this studio right now. But Sylvia, Ashlee, what are some things that you'd like to share in addition to what you've already shared? For those out there, again, who they're so hesitant to get started. Um, you said they should just write or they should just speak. Those are two things.
Hmm.
But again, do you ever say they need to perhaps get away, be more mindful? Does any meditation, are there some things that also help with the writing process, especially for those who are not writers, like you said you weren't initially, Ashley?
So I was always a storyteller. So I should say that I was not trained to sit down and write. I have a mind that runs very quickly. So sitting down to write was always a challenge. But I think something that really could help is picking a simple object. Picking a simple object. One of the biggest things that I look for, even when I'm helping other people publish their books and write their books, is like description. Like you said, we had Evelyn calling earlier, and she's blind. If someone is blind, could they picture a scene? Because essentially when you're reading text, this is not children's books, but when you're reading text, you need to be able to see with the words that you hear or that you're reading. So take simple objects. Can you take a specific day and describe it? Can you capture how you feel about something, or even something simple like I'm dreaming about ice cream right now because we're still in winter, and I'm dreaming of that hot summer day. Can you write me a story about a hot summer day or tell a story? So I think start there, like Sylvia said, with the baby steps. Sometimes maybe even changing your language with yourself. Maybe it's not I want to write a book. It's I want to tell a story. So then you think, okay, let me start practicing telling a story, no matter how simple that story is.
What are some of the other new techniques and technologies that people should think about when they write? That it's not simply, it doesn't have to be just a book anymore. It could be a blog or what? What are some of those areas?
I think one for me that I'm using now, and it's worked out because we just launched it at the beginning of March. It's not necessarily new, but I think now the importance is showing all over again is YouTube. So for me, I've moved my programming from being in the community space to my show, Mrs. Ashlee, creating a YouTube channel called Mrs. Ashlee's Learning Emporium. And it's all literacy based, but it's using the books. And then we do activities each week with those books. Additionally, I think like Sylvia is a master at it, but using your social media to not only promote your story, but to extend the life of your story. So which ways can you show yourself as a writer, and which way can you show your stories in different ways to reach different audiences? And then I think another thing, this is not necessarily the technology, but to appeal to different audiences, even thinking about how to package your knowledge in different ways. I have a friend who does makeup, and she's a great esthetician, but once you can't have butts and seats, what do you do? And so that's a question that I ask myself, and I try to help the women that I help with their businesses think of different ways to package, to generate revenue, and to serve their audience. That's the core of everything I do. How do I serve? And so, Monica, I have to give you the huge announcement. You're going to be the first to know.
Okay.
And this is perfect. So when we're talking about having time to write your stories or giving those babies to give you 10 minutes in a hubby, but especially the babies, Mrs. Ashlee is now offering virtual sessions live with your children online. And so they're twofold. For our younger babies, K through third grade, they can work with me through reading a book and then doing hands-on activities. But having someone live interacting with them is powerful. Someone who's from Detroit and is brown. Mrs. Ashlee is pretty young, guys. So the kids are always surprised like that by that. I'm not the old stuffy teacher. And we're having fun. And this is a great opportunity to get them excited about learning literacy in themselves. With the story writing, children can actually make a difference. A lot of children won't be participating in prolonged courses because they're out of school. But in this moment, they have the chance to work with me to create stories for their younger peers. And then those stories will be available free in the Mrs. Ashlee Library. And they have a chance to inspire their younger peers to be engaged in reading and writing and storytelling.
That is
and so
phenomenal.
you can sign up now. Thank you. You can sign up now at mrsashlee.com. I'll put the information in the group, but it's ASHLEE, not EY. And here's another thing, guys. If you're like, well, I don't have kids and I don't need an extra 10 minutes to write, through my nonprofit, geniuspatch.org, you can actually sponsor classes for kids who may not be able to afford them.
Ashlee, repeat the name of that again. Say that again.
To donate or sponsor courses with Mrs. Ashlee for kids who may not be able to afford them, go to geniuspatch.org.
Geniuspatch.org.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where we grow those geniuses, at the Genius Patch. So that's where you donate and can contribute to sponsoring sessions for children to interact with Mrs. Ashlee live.
And you will also be able to find that information on our Facebook link. That's great. Ladies, we have about a quick minute each to wrap it up. So if you just like to leave our listeners with your parting words. Ashlee?
Ashlee?
For someone who wants to write a book and is not sure, what do you say to them?
First off, Ashlee Chesny is here to support adults in writing their stories, too. I'll actually leave that email in the group, but it's info@ashleechesney.com, and I can help you. I have helped people reach bestseller lists and get their story out, so don't worry about that. It's just about having the passion. Once you start, everything you need to have to turn that story into a book will arrive, guys. You can do this. And like Sylvia said, you are either saving or changing someone's life with your story, so do it.
And so you're saying it's info@ASHLEECHESNY.com?
You got it.
Okay, so you can reach out.
Yes, and please reach out, guys. Don't be shy.